every review, I have to pick my dog hair off my shirt. The Defenders Season 1 has been added to Netflix. There's 8 episodes, and this is going to be a review of all of those episodes. It's going to be mostly spoiler-free if you haven't seen it all yet. I'm going to talk about minor plot points, but I'll do my best to avoid anything major. This is the culmination of Daredevil Season 1 and 2, Jessica Jones Season 1, Luke Cage Season 1, and Iron Fist Season 1. Everyone's coming together. It's like the Netflix Avengers, which is pretty awesome. Something I was very excited for. I wasn't a humongous fan of Iron Fist. That was very disappointing. I didn't hate the show like some critics did, but I really, really loved Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and especially Daredevil Season 1 and 2. This show wisely starts out with the 4 main characters doing their own thing. Iron Fist is trying to track down the Hand, Jessica Jones is trying to track down a client, Luke Cage is trying to help a kid in Harlem, and Daredevil is trying to not be Daredevil because he doesn't want to hurt those closest to him anymore. But you can tell there's something underneath him that's antsy. There's something about not doing that at night that's really getting to him. It feels almost as if he's not himself. And instead of just having them all plow together in one episode to fight bad guys from the very beginning, it has them getting used to each other. It has them running into each other at different parts, and you get to see them slowly get into the idea of working together. That's something they captured really well in Season 1. They don't just have all 4 of them come together and are like, hey, yay, we're a team, we're awesome people, so let's be a team and fight bad guys. All 4 of these characters are very damaged people, and most of them are used to doing things on their own. So for all 4 of them, we get to watch them try to get used to the idea of accepting help, because most of them are so used to doing things on their own because they're all very special people, and they're not used to the idea of accepting any assistance from anyone else. And most of them, Matt Murdock in particular, are very worried about hurting those closest to them by making enemies, which is why he wears a suit. Now this brings a lot of comedy to the show, because out of the 4 Defenders that are in this version of them, he's the only one who wears a suit. And so whenever he puts it on, you get a lot of great lines, especially from Jessica Jones. Krysten Ritter, once again, is excellent as the basically full-blown alcoholic superhero who really doesn't want to be called a hero, which is another great theme in the first season of this show. None of them really think of themselves that way. They don't view themselves as superheroes. There's an entire episode dedicated to the fact that the majority of them don't even like that word. Now, as I said, Iron Fist was my least favorite show in the Netflix MCU. In my review of Season 1, I said that I hoped Iron Fist would be a more lighthearted presence in the Defenders, and he absolutely is. Out of the 4, he's probably the one that presents himself as most giddy about the prospect of a team-up. He's the easiest to convince that it's a good idea because his mission is against the Hand, and when he finds out that 3 other people are in their own ways on that same mission, he's like, yeah, let's do it. Why is everyone so upset about this? And Luke Cage is like, I don't believe any of this shit. Which at times can be a little distracting because this takes place in the MCU where the Avengers happened. Aliens invaded the city. It should be a little easier for him to believe these types of things, but that's something we have to get used to, because whenever New York is in danger, you're automatically thinking, why don't they just call Thor or Iron Man? Why don't they just call Captain America? That's just not how this works, and we kind of have to accept that. We have to give these characters time to breathe. It's not like every human that exists in the MCU is going to sit down and believe everything they hear because the Avengers happened. So I like the fact that Luke Cage is still this hardened guy who's very grounded and down to earth and very nitty gritty, and he doesn't really believe much of anything until he sees it. Finn Jones as Iron Fist, I feel, is better in The Defenders than he was in Season 1 of his own show. And a lot of that has to do with the material. He's given much better material here. His character is more compelling, and his mission is more compelling. There's something to do. It's not just like a bunch of business shit. There's minor business stuff in The Defenders, and that was easily my least favorite part of Iron Fist. But they use it wisely here. He's able to use his resources in ways that can help him track down the Hand. Let's talk about the Hand. In this show, you finally get to see the 5 fingers of the Hand, the leaders of this organization. Sigourney Weaver being the top head honcho. And she's excellent. She's highly intimidating, and she sidetracked conventions of the type of character she plays. That was something I heard her talk about in an interview. She didn't want to be viewed as an ice queen or just some bitch that's really mean who everyone's afraid of. She's extremely refined and very complex. There's something about her that makes her vulnerable that adds a lot to her character, and I appreciated that. She wasn't just some mustache twirling person who is really good at killing people. You can actually understand her ideology, and you can see where she comes from. In fact, she even says in one episode that for a war to happen, both sides have to believe that they're the good guys. And they did a good job of showing why this hand organization thinks that they're doing the right thing. Elektra is back as well, and they really got her right here. I mean, if they explore things that aren't necessarily in the comics, I'm not too worried about that. I like the way they took her character. I thought she was also pretty intimidating and a complete badass. And once again, Charlie Cox as Matthew Murdock, aka Daredevil, just knocks it out of the park. Daredevil is one of my favorite superheroes. As far as comics go, it's Batman, Spider-Man, and Daredevil. Frank Miller's work on Daredevil might be my favorite comics of all time, even more so than Batman, and I have tons of Batman comics. I am just so glad that we have a good cinematic portrayal of Daredevil. I didn't hate Ben Affleck's work as the character, but the film needed a lot of work. I'll talk about that movie one day, I'd love to. Mike Colter, again, as Luke Cage, is just the epitome of badass, but there's such a great level of humanity to him through the writing and through his performance where you can understand that he doesn't want to use his strength or his abilities for anything other than helping people. In fact, there's a lot of times where the team is forced to make really hard decisions where he just has to stand back and is like, look, I'll do this, but no one innocent gets hurt. No one. And they all have to be like, yep, we agree. We agree on this, right? There's a lot of comedy that comes from their team up that really works for this show because it's not just four people coming together to fight bad guys. They really do a fantastic job of humanizing these characters to show that it's really just four really damaged people who have a tough time working together with anyone, and they have to get used to that. The action scenes, for the most part, are really fantastic. I would say my favorites were episode 3 and the season finale. There's some really great fight choreography. There's a few episodes where it's too dim, though. Too much in the shadows and too many cuts. But for the most part, they do a really good job at making it look badass. At times, the show can be just a little uneven because it's four storylines crashing together, and there's a lot of subplots that are developed from the other seasons of shows that are momentarily addressed throughout this first season of The Defenders. And whenever that happens, it can sometimes feel like the writers have to. Like they're being forced to be like, yeah, I feel like these characters would talk about that one thing that happened before, but it doesn't really do much of anything for the Defenders' continuity. But they feel almost like they have to have certain storylines and characters there. One thing that definitely bothered me was Karen and Foggy's inclusion in this season. They have to be there. It's important for them to be there. Now I'm going to get into some spoilers if you haven't seen Daredevil Season 2. Big warning for you. Since they now know who Matt is as Daredevil, they don't like it. They don't want him to get hurt, and they're very much so against it. And it kind of makes their characters a little annoying in this season because you really want to see Daredevil and you can recognize that he really needs that part of his life. And it's a big arc for his character in this season. But whenever they're around, they're just giving him shit for it. And I'm like, guys, you don't see what he's trying to do here. And it kind of made those characters that I found very likable in Daredevil Season 1 and 2 annoying in this season. And just like with basically every MCU show, there's at least one episode that drags, that feels like it's sort of a setup episode that needs to shuffle characters around to get them to a specific place. This show has one episode that's like that, where it was fine, but for the most part, that's just because I was already so invested in seeing these characters that when you really love characters from a show, you can accept one mediocre episode because you just want to know what those characters are up to. And that happens with TV shows. It's bound to happen. And there's at least one in The Defenders where I was like, okay, let's get to the meat here. Misty Knight from Luke Cage is included here, who was a great character in that show. But again, similar to Foggy and Karen, she's sort of that one person who's scrambling to figure out what's going on, and sometimes she can feel like she's halting the plot. It's needed to make our heroes feel some pressure from the law so that they understand that they can't get away with everything. But her inclusion at times can feel like that, where you're like, all right, you guys are just getting in the way of what needs to happen, but it does make the story more interesting, and I'm willing to accept that. Rosario Dawson is back again, and always really good in these shows, and I'm glad to see her continuing to have a huge part in them. And once again, Jessica Henwick is back as Colleen Wing, and her character is a welcomed addition to this show, and I'm glad to see her getting more screen time. Now, I can't really explain who this character is because it's a spoiler, and I told you I wouldn't get into that, but there is a character that shows up towards the end, and I was just like, why do we have this person again? I don't need to see this person. I can't really get into it, but I was just like, just go away. I didn't like you the first time I saw you. I still don't like you in this show. Why are you here? It's not the actor, it's the character. And they brought a specific character and included them again in this show, and gratefully, they're not around for that long, but still, I was just like, really? Again with this? Like, we already did this. We don't need this again. Also, the last 20 minutes of the final episode messed with me so hard. There's a shot of Iron Fist on a rooftop. That's how I'll put it. I went, no, you are not going to do that. Don't do that to me. I was gripping my fists. I was just, no, this can't be what they're going to do. And then there was more after that. And I went, oh, okay. Okay. You guys got me. You got me good. They found great ways to make their team up very funny, but also compelling reasons to delve into the past of all four of them and show why it might be really difficult for them to accept help. I had a great time with season 1. I thought it was a lot of fun. I think the Netflix MCU is back on track with a little bit of a rocky season of Iron Fist. It's great to see them doing some good stuff again. I'm going to give the Defenders a B+. Guys, thank you very much, as always, for watching. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.